We'll call the meeting to order. FinCom meeting of the 25th. We have any public participation? Seeing none. We have a number of minutes to approve. I don't know if you have them all. I didn't get the latest, but the first set of minutes was the police subcommittee meeting minutes. So those involved with that, I need a motion, discussion, and so forth.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
By Amy, thank you.
Second,
Second. Sorry, second by whom?
Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Discussion on the police subcommittee meeting minutes.
I'll move
Seeing
approval.
none, those on the subcommittee, all in favor?
I'll move approval of that. I think you need the motion to approve first. Yeah,
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Thank you. Police subcommittee minutes done. The IT subcommittee minutes. Someone on that group, please.
I move to approve the minutes.
Was that
I'll
Evan?
take the recommendation. Yep. Second.
Second, Brian.
Thank you. Any discussion? Motion to approve the IT minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Not a motion. IT minutes approved. Next subcommittee minutes was the library subcommittee minutes.
This is Dan. I'll move approval.
second it.
Very good. All those in favor of approval of the library subcommittee minutes?
Aye.
You approved. And then we have the fire budget tonight. We want to have Kevin go first and then the subcommittee. Is that what we've been doing, Steve? When we get
Do
to
you want
that?
to finish up the minutes first, Jim? Finish fire
Sure.
department subcommittee and then FinCom?
Right, so the fire department subcommittee minutes, we haven't seen yet though, right? We're just seeing them tonight, correct? So I want to hear from the subcommittee about their minutes first, and we'll approve it at the next meeting, Steve, because this is the fire subcommittee, the fire department budget tonight. Is that all right?
Shouldn't we approve the like us as a subcommittee approve those minutes and then present them? Or
Yes.
it doesn't matter to me.
Sure, all right, that makes sense. I just haven't, the group hasn't seen them or heard from you, so go ahead. You want to make a motion on the fire department subcommittee minutes?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the fire department subcommittee minutes.
Second.
Second.
Very good. Subcommittee, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just ask who seconded that?
Evan, sorry.
Okay,
I think everybody actually seconded.
everybody did.
Just pick one.
Great, thank you. In the last approval of the February 11th regular finance committee meeting minutes. Hope you had a look at those.
I'll move
Can I
approval.
get a
of that.
motion on that, please?
I'll move approval, Jim.
Dan will second.
Gerard, Dan, thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Unanimous, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, you caught up on that? Great.
I'm caught up. And I'm taking.
Okay, we'll take comments from the Fire Department Finance Subcommittee.
Sure. So we met on the 4th. We went over, like, again, the fire department budget this year was relatively clean. It was because it was a level funded with the exception of personal services. And even the personal services was by and large contractually agreed to increases as well as increases in staffing due to the Safer Grant stuff. We also discussed overtime and I believe also some issues around materials and maintenance spending. And did we miss anything there, guys?
Well, we did a little bit on the retirement like we normally would do.
Mhm.
That's about it.
All right, very good. And I see Deputy Tom is on and joining us. Tom Purcell, how you doing? And Chief Sullivan. Very good. Kevin, or Steve, how would you like to start? You want to start with the fire department?
Sure. Why don't you have Kevin give a brief overview on it, and then the chief and the deputy chief are here to answer any questions.
Thank you.
The fire department budget, we're recommending an increase of $215,882 over the current fiscal year. As Doug has said, this is all in personal services and is for contractual and negotiated increases. This budget does include 4 new firefighter positions. These positions will be funded by a SAFER grant. It will cover these positions 100% for 3 years. The expense portion of the budget has been level funded. The total budget request for fiscal 2022 is $6,057,188.
Okay, what did you say the increase was at the beginning? 215.8 or something else?
Yes, $215,882.
Thank you. All right. Do you want to make any comments, Chief, or you want to just take questions? What's your pleasure?
I'm very willing to just take questions.
Yep.
There's much more that I can say that I said the other night, if that's fine.
Very good. So open it up then for questions, either raising your hand electronically or otherwise. Dan Sherman.
Yeah, thank you. So on page 2 of the budget, it goes through the personal services, a little more detail. And I'm curious, a couple things. One is on the overtime. We spent through the first half of 21, $427,000 out of a budget of 492. That leaves not much for the rest of the year. And I see a reduction of to $480,000 being proposed. Can someone explain what's going on here with overtime?
Kevin, you want to take this one? Kevin knows.
Yeah, I got that one. We have a reimbursement coming in through the CARES Act that covered some of our overtime through half the fiscal year. It's a little over 200,000. It's about $210,000 that we're going to be getting reimbursed. So the reimbursement hasn't been put back into this budget yet. So when you put that money back, when the money comes in, when we put it back in, they should be in decent shape.
Okay, so then my working down a little bit, I noticed a very large change in the EMT line item from 270,000 to 318. So you want to explain that one?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. First of all, Dan, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. So I'd say that. There's 2 primary reasons for the increase. One is we have a few more EMTs on the department, and obviously they're going to get the stipend that's entitled to them. And secondly, and probably more significantly, is the fact that they just settled a contract and the stipend got a raise, if you will. It's an increase in the percentage, and that would account for the lion's share of that increase that you see.
And you mute.
Sorry, would that be part of the education increase as well? Is that contributing to that?
That's a separate line item, Dan.
No, I know, but it's the same reason?
Yes, so you're absolutely correct. So holiday, EMT, I'm missing something, education, they're all gonna show increases due to the recent contract.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
All right. I don't see any other hands up. I do see some increases, individual folks increasing. They're probably getting promoted. Is that probably the case, Chief? On some of the sizable raises?
Yeah, there's, you probably noticed 4 or 5 positions in there. We had a promotion from lieutenant to captain. We had a promotion from firefighter to lieutenant. We had a promotion from captain to deputy chief. We had a negotiated increase in the EMT coordinator position in the contract, the person that coordinates training and such for and medical supplies and so forth for the department. And that position was actually split into 2 positions, and each of them had a slight increase. So that account would have gone up, and those 2 people would have shown an increase in their in their salary. And we had, there was another negotiated benefit in the contract for seniority in terms of like the senior captain, senior lieutenant, senior firefighter, and that's reflected in there as well. I think I got them all.
Okay, very good. Doug, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on, again, and this is probably more for Steve versus Mike, but the SAFER grant is a third. So you get, they pay the full amount this year. They pay, is it 75 or 2/3 the next year?
We have 2 SAFER grants, actually.
Oh, I know, but one of them is rolling off next year, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Are you talking about that one for the one firefighter?
Well, yeah, so that's down to just paying 20,000 or so of his salary.
It's 75% the first year, 75% the second year. It drops to 35% the third year.
And then
I want to say, yeah, that it's around 20. I don't have that right in front of me.
Okay, all right, so that's the way it's gonna work, and that's more, I brought this up at the council meeting. It's probably more for you, Dan, that like we need to think about that we're essentially adding a firefighter or so a year for the next 4 years when plotting out the growth of the fire budget.
If I can jump in before we get to that point, Chief, the larger SAFER grant is a little different than the smaller, the first one.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. The second SAFER grant is for 4 firefighters. That fully funds 100% salary and benefits for 3 entire years.
So that doesn't step down the way the other one does.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I would have been way more in favor of it had I known that.
Happy Doug, look at that.
Look at that. But I do think, if I might, Mr. Chairman, like we discussed with the police budget, the FinCom discussed it at our last meeting. With the fire budget, we are looking at a lot more development. We're looking at a lot higher and taller buildings. In fact, the new one on Foundry Street that hasn't even broken ground yet, across the street from the other 2 that are being done. My understanding is that footprint and building kind of mirrors 175 North Ave, so the one at Tono's. So we're looking at a lot more density, a lot higher buildings. So I think your point, Doug, is correct. We do need to forecast this out, like with the police, the effect of this developments on our public safety and how we're gonna have to move and look at that. So it will give the forecasting committee and me something to do.
Yeah, like we need something.
After we get through the pandemic, we can really map this out. But that SAFER grant for 3 years is great.
Right,
So
and I'll say this, we did just add 4 firefighters. It's not like, it's not like we're going to be, and by the way, chief and deputy chief, I know it's going to be tough hiring those 4 or keeping the numbers up. But yeah, 53 is fine, Steve. Don't be giving away your negotiations for 3 years from now.
I'm not saying to hire more. I'm saying we have to look at, there's other items in negotiation we look at. The chief and deputy chief know what I'm talking about.
All right, I still can't figure out, is Doug happy or not happy? I'm confused.
Never completely happy. Come on.
It was happy the other day. I don't know.
Yeah. Jesus. Thank you, Doug. Gerard,
Hey, Chief, since we're adding 4 new folks, new EMTs, how is the uniforms and clothing line item stays level funded if we have incrementally new people to clothe in uniform?
The actual uniforms, except for their first issue, are they were rolled into the base pay contract or 2 ago. But what would be impacted is the protective gear that we buy them. That's about $2,500 a person. We already have an allocation. The finance committee was good enough to provide an increase for to buy each 10 sets of gear a year. So we'll be able to accommodate that into the budget. But
Great. Thanks, Chief.
Dan, were you up again?
Yes, I am. So I was going to following up on that conversation regarding the size of the department. So how many members of the department do we have today?
right now, as we speak, it's 51.
And with this, with this budget, we anticipate 51?
With the 4 new safer firefighters that we're in the process of hiring right now, that'll go to 55. That has to be maintained for 3 years.
So you're at 55 for 3 years, and when a safer grant is over, are we going to be back to 51 or be 55? Where do you think that's just going?
Well, I mean, obviously, it would be ideal if we could maintain 55.
Okay.
You know, that's the most honest answer I can give you.
No, that's fine. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it certainly, I wouldn't, not that I'm volunteering this, but it would, I mean, it's certainly possible to go back to 51, sorry, if the town chose to do that. What's happening with staffing is we're having, we're able to boost the crew on ladder 1 to 3 personnel. And that's critical for, in terms of like the duties that the ladder can perform. They can do a lot more. You get a lot more for your money, so to speak, with a 3-man crew, not just in firefighting, but in all of the calls that we handle, medical emergencies and so forth.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I was just trying to get my head around forecasting it. And it is what Steve is saying in terms of the growth and what's going on around our buildings. And the fact that we're able to reduce our overtime, or at least not have it increase like it was back in 2019, is helpful. So no, that's fine. I'm just trying to get my head around where I should be looking down the road. So thank you. I'm good.
Did you ask me a question about the overtime? Did you understand that the primary reason the overtime is the way it is the COVID pandemic?
Oh, the current one, yeah. But I'm also thinking about where it was, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We had a reserve fund transfer in 2019 for $170,000, and part of that was overtime and also some retirements. So we're just trying to keep that RFT down to a 0 like it was for 21 or 20. I mean.
Okay.
Very good. Anybody else for fire? All right, Chief, Deputy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Steve, any particular order you'd like?
We do have, I'll make John Spinello wait. You don't mind waiting, John, do you?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we can do, I'd like to do health insurance yet. Ruth Clay is on, and we have another one of those vaccine clinics tomorrow, so we're pretty much exhausted setting up for it. So maybe Ruth can get an extra hour of sleep tonight.
Sure.
before we hit the hordes tomorrow. So
Ruth, are you ready for us or not?
maybe Kevin can jump in and then give the.
Yep,
the-
go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll
Yep.
give you a quick overview. The health department budget, we're requesting an increase of $7,983 over the current fiscal year. This increase breaks down under personal services. The increase is $6,045, which is a contractual and negotiated increase. I do want to point out that this position has also been upgraded, so the increase there is a little bit higher than you've seen in some of the other budgets. Under contractual services, there is an increase of $1,569. We increased the public health nurse from 11 hours a week to 17 and a half hours a week. We split that person with, that nurse with Melrose, so we're looking to make that a full-time position that will share between the two towns. And on the bottom of the contractual services, I did put in for a CARES reimbursement for half the cost of the increase for the public health nurse, approximately a little over $7,000. There's also a small increase in the mosquito control line item. The total tax levy request for fiscal 2022 is $277,023.
Mr. Chairman, maybe the subcommittee did look at this. Evan
Yep.
Kenny might want to chime in.
Thank you. Kevin? Evan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just give a brief overview here and sort of let the experts weigh in on the individual budgets. But we have I think the percentage, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, is somewhere around 2.5 points total here.
All in, yeah.
Yeah. And so just some highlights. You heard a little bit of the Board of Health. There's some increased manning, essentially, personnel costs, some associated with the pandemic, some not. But they certainly seem fairly justifiable, I think, to the members of the subcommittee. Some good news on insurance, which I'm sure John will be thrilled to inform you about. Steve will get into, I think, this sort of parking animal control link. There's some regionalization efforts there, as well as some boost, I guess, in services that as an added bonus prevents Steve from having to be a parking clerk, which he likes.
No.
And overall, it sounds like that arrangement, and Steve will explain this, but it sounds like we end up with a net savings there, nevertheless. And then there was, one thing that stood out to me, and I don't know if Chairman Lehman is going to speak to his school subcommittee discussions, but and maybe this has been updated since we spoke, but there was some question on the Medicare budget about, because it's based on total payroll, it's based on salaries, which the town has pretty well nailed down unless their contracts are still up in the air. In terms of the school salaries, we're still a little unclear on that. Last I checked, whatever it was a week ago. And that confused me a little bit because, we're in year 2 of a contract there. It should be pretty easy to figure out. So Kevin's making do with it. Frankly, it's not that big. It's probably not that big a deal. I was just frankly a little bit irked that we didn't have those numbers already from the school department, but maybe we do now. So that was sort of my takeaway, and I would invite Mr. Chairman, if you'd indulge, Don and Teray to weigh in if they want to.
Yep, very good. Any others? All right, Don and Teray, you guys are good then, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Jim, if I can, I just want to say I had really the pleasure of working at the clinic on Monday. And, kudos to Ruth and Rick Stinson and Steve, and obviously a lot of people. The clinic was phenomenally well organized and well run. And, to see the people come through there and be as appreciative as they were, I mean, it was truly heartwarming. So I certainly hope that Wakefield can continue to, conduct their own clinics and stuff. But I really just want to give shout out to the people involved organizing it because it's extraordinary, really.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Bill.
Ruth,
Yep, I'm here.
how are things?
Awesome. Things are great.
How
Everything's
are
good.
things, right? Yeah,
Yeah, we're all good.
just as we just as we planned it. That's good. So Kevin went over the budget, subcommittee discussed pieces of it. Any questions or comments from the group? All right, Ruth, on behalf of this small group, we obviously appreciate everything that the folks are doing and never realized how much we appreciated the health department till about 18 months ago or so. So thank you.
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Very good. Thank you, and good luck tomorrow.
Thanks.
And
Thank
get
you.
those arms. Don't leave anything on the table, right? That's what,
We don't.
We don't. Nothing goes to waste.
no, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
All righty. You want to work through John? Or,
Yeah, I
we
think,
have, we
if
have,
you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, we could do, Kevin could start off with general insurance first and then
Yep.
workers' comp. And John wants to talk for about an hour about workers' comp because he's thrilled with that budget, but we're gonna shut him down a little bit.
I'm sure you will.
Kevin?
Okay, the general insurance budget, we're recommending that this budget be increased $23,200 over the current fiscal year. This increase breaks down. There's an increase of $21,500 to the tax levy portion of the budget, an $1,100 increase to the water division, and a $600 increase to the sewer division. This budget covers the town buildings, motor vehicles, professional liability, and cybersecurity. Total budget request for fiscal 2022 is $460,425, with $423,025 coming from tax levy, $23,800 from the water enterprise, and $13,600 from the sewer enterprise. Before I turn it over to John, I do want to point out that to close out this fiscal year, we're going to need a small increase, a small reserve fund transfer to close out this account for fiscal 21.
How small?
Few $1,000, under $5,000.
Okay. And so we have a PDF for general insurance. Is that what you're going to be referring to, John?
Sure. Yes. First, I'd like to say hi to Bill and Joanne. Nice to see both of you.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, I haven't had the chance to do this for a few years, and it's infinitely more fun when we're all sitting at the table together. But for those of you who don't know John Spinello, he was a stellar Wakefield Warrior athlete back in the 70s, although he doesn't look that old. Soccer, basketball player, and back then we had candy cane socks for basketball, and he was really, really attractive in those. So I just wanted to give you a little bit more introduction for those of you who might not know John so well.
I will say I never got the pleasure to wear them, but I did make fun of the people who did. So, general insurance, yeah, we're over a couple $1,000, but I actually consider that pretty good tolerance when you consider that, I talked to the carriers in January for a July budget. They're very reluctant to talk about something that's 6 months away. So, we normally will increase our buildings every single year, and that's usually $3,000 or $4,000. So we work within a very small window. So they would just say, put in for 4 or 5%, we'll talk to you in April. So in April, they usually will send out applications and questionnaires, which I'll fill out, send back. And then when I get the pricing, I sit down with Steve and Kevin every single year, and I tell the carrier how great we are, and they tell us what's going on nationally, and we go back and forth, and we argue over thousands of dollars. So last year, between the IT department, Steve and I, we really wanted to acquire cyber liability and data compromise. So it was a coverage I thought we could afford to lose. So we dropped one and we picked up that, kind of realigned the program a little bit. But we're still within a couple $1,000s of the budget. So it is difficult. It isn't like workers' compensation where I can be down to the dollar because I have the rates and the payrolls. This is just, you put the number out there and for me anyway, and then we sit down and we discuss it in May. We always seem to come to an agreement between the carrier, Steve and myself. And so it does work. You know, most of this budget, 95% of it's billed on July 1st. So if there is any left over, the only thing we have to hold on to is the bonds for the spring. So, you know, again, it's just a guess at this time, but we seem to get pretty close to our number or below it in the last couple of years. Before this last year, we were under. Last year, we were over by a little bit. So I'm happy to discuss any coverage that's on there or the budget itself, if you like, but that's about all I have.
So John, you're saying it's in at around 5% or so, a little over 5% currently.
Well, I didn't say, I went over what we're gonna spend, so it came to 4.5, but then Kevin corrected me, it was 5.1 over last year. But I'm basically, we're gonna spend a few more $1,000s than we have. So it was my mistake.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the future budget, looks like a 5.35 increase.
That's correct.
Is that not correct?
No, that is correct.
Okay. And John, that's based on estimates because it's, as you described, you don't have locked in figures, right?
They'll never talk to you about something that's 6 months away. I mean, their program is July to July, so they're halfway through it, so they don't really know, you know, what their losses are gonna look like. I can tell you nationally, that claims on notice for carriers is up 400% on cyber liability, which doesn't surprise me at all when you have a lot of people working off, you know, at their home. So I don't know. In the fall, if you ask me, property insurance was going up 8 or 10%, you know, so it seems to have leveled off. Some of my larger private accounts are coming in flat or 2 or 3%. So it's a guess at this point. I don't tell them what the budget is. I tell them I don't have any money in there, and you know, you kind of play poor man with them for a while. And I think they realize what's going on with municipalities in the country because they're the largest in the country. So I think it'll be favorable for us, but at this point, I just don't know.
Okay, very good. Questions from folks? Doug? Doug on mute.
John, you did that broad breakdown on the property coverage page on, I guess, page 2. Now, is it done with a single carrier or is it sort of multiple carriers around that? And then is there any place where you break out like what percentage each one is of the overall budget? Like I think you give us a number of 460, 425. But do we see what the amounts are for each of those coverages? Or is that just lumped together?
We talking about the property insurance?
Yeah, just the thing you gave me in terms of the general insurance budget. You're spending 460, and then I'm just not talking about property, talking about everything.
Right.
I don't get a break. Do we not normally get a breakdown of how that 460 is broken out?
I only on the budget do I break it up in property liability and motor vehicle. I don't break it up into anything else.
Okay.
The individual coverages in a program like this, they will move money around year to year. So yes, I could do that in the future. Just tell you what, say, public officials liability cost and employment practice liability and property. I can do that. But I don't generally do it. I usually I usually separate auto and then property liability and everything else is in there. But there's probably 7 or 8 different policies within the property and liability.
Okay. And then and that's fine. So I guess that's the bigger question. And again, did we get, I think all of us on the personal side probably got money back on our car insurance last year, but I assume that that didn't take place because our miles driven are not down dramatically. Or is it just that you don't get it back if because most of ours, I would assume, are schools and police and whatnot.
Well, private passenger is different than commercial auto anyway.
No,
so-
I'm just, but in general, like, the question is are commercial auto rates not falling to the same degree that private auto rates are?
Well, if we go private here, commercial auto will always be higher than private passenger. And
No,
then there's-
but
I know, I understand.
wasn't there a shift down in pricing on the
Right.
private auto? And I would assume it shifted down in pricing in
No, it
commercial
actually,
auto as well.
no, actually the other way around. Nationally, commercial auto was up. It's probably the worst line out there right now. Ours is composite rated, okay? So we have vehicles, our vehicle liability insurance for $1 million cost us about $550 for each vehicle. It's based on cost new, okay, and the age. Radius doesn't matter because it's mostly in Wakefield. So if you take a fire department truck, for instance, okay, the latest one we put on was $946,000. So we have collision and comprehensive on that. That collision and comp costs us under $100 for that vehicle, even though the value is $900,000. And then we'll have a pickup truck that's 10 years old and we'll have the same identical rate. Same with the park and forestry with their bucket trucks. I mean, some of these trucks are $200,000, but it's the same identical rate regardless of the size. It's composite rated. So that was our total premium per vehicle last year, not trailers, but per vehicle was under $600. There's no credit back to it. There's nothing in there for anti-theft devices. It's not like a private passenger where you can kind of pick and choose and, you have credits coming back if you're low mileage or if you're a good driver. So it isn't the same.
And do we budget, and I mean, not to be crass, do we budget, is your commission wrapped into these, or is it a separated out price or a separated out line item?
Well, nothing goes in my pocket for this, but the agency gets a commission from the company.
And
It's wrapped in the premium.
Do Steve and Kevin know what that is?
No.
Okay.
Not that I
Can
know.
we find out?
If they'd like to know, I can tell them.
Yeah, I think we'd like to know.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I gotta say that over the last 20 years that I've been involved, we've had great service from John.
I'm not saying anything one way or the other. I'm just saying like we should know.
Well, did you call up your insurance agent and ask him?
I would ask my insurance agent, certainly.
You think
But I go direct, so it's not,
Well, okay, but if you had an insurance agent, would you call him up and say how much commission you're making off of my auto policy?
Yeah, same that I do with my broker, the same that people do with me all the time on the investment side.
Any good agent wouldn't tell you.
Don?
Yes, Jim.
Yep. So.
No, Don, I'm sorry, D-O-N, not John.
Don.
Thank you.
So just a couple of questions. How are the building limit values set on the coverages?
Okay, so we have about 300 million in property, buildings and contents. So we do give them a schedule of the individual buildings, which you have. I sent them all out,
right.
So you should have them. I really don't pay too much attention to the individual buildings, okay, because we have $300 million to spend. We get a blanket building rate and we have blanket insurance. So, and we have an agreed amount endorsement attached to the policy. So if we had a loss, let's just say on Farm Street, on the high school, even though you look at it, we probably have maybe $80 million on it on the schedule. But if we had a total loss there, we have $300 million to spend on that loss. So what I did last year is I took the Galvin School, which is the latest one that we have, obviously a fire resistive masonry sprinkler building, which was about a little over $400 a square foot. And I figured, well, okay, so I took all the square footages of all the buildings and I applied that to them. And we had enough to replace just about every building we had except for things like maybe the Hatchon House, the Little Red Schoolhouse, and maybe a few water department buildings. But we had enough coverage if we have every building go in the town all at once. And more than likely, if it does go, you wouldn't be talking to me anyway. But, and we have enough if we have multiple buildings at once. So I don't know what's going to bring them all down, you know, but I'm comfortable with a $300 million building on anything we have, because we just replaced the Galvin School, which was $72 million in 2014. So where we are, I'm comfortable with. And every year they will roll on a certain percentage, which you can't really argue with them about it, because they give us that blanket building. So, and that usually costs us a couple $1,000s a year. So yes, we do have individual schedules that we give them to make up what they think is $300,000. That's 300 million, sorry. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don, you're all set?
Yes.
Okay, Evan, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And John, I don't mean to put you on the spot here. Frankly, I don't care that much what your company's commission is on our premium. But I would feel bad leaving Doug as the only skunk at the picnic. So let me just follow up for a second there. It's funny, I was speaking with a consulting company, a broker, really, an insurance broker, who operates in the public space, mostly on the medical side in Massachusetts. And the story I was told, in a sort of unrelated coincidence that we were talking about this, but there was an incident, I don't know how many years ago, where a Massachusetts town found out that an insurance broker on the medical side was getting commission from the carrier and also collecting consulting fees from the town. And it was told to me, and I didn't verify it, but it's just relevant here, that there was sort of a state law, I think, that was passed so that, insurance brokers selling to municipalities can no longer collect commissions from the carrier. They can only do consulting fees. So it sounds like that's not the case in the space you operate in. And I'm not asking you to be a lawyer here either, John. I'm just, the topic came up and I'm asking, and I'm just curious if you're sort of aware what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, but let me just say the relationship here between myself and the town is different than, you doing business with an independent agent. I was an independent agent when we sold that a couple of years ago. As an independent agent, I represented Travels and Commerce and so on, and they gave us a commission schedule. They said, look, you're going to go out and write so much business. And if we did $100,000, we get a certain commission. If we did $1 million, we get a certain commission. So we had to build volume with them. So an agent really has a contract with the company. I'm a broker, okay? I do not represent any carrier. I represent the town of Wakefield. You are my customer, okay? I don't have, I'm not an independent agent, so it isn't like I have companies here in my house. I don't have them. I go and represent you to Trident Public Risk Services, and that's where I place the coverage. And I sign an application that I give them all the information to the best of my knowledge, and that I'm not lying or anything else. So I don't work for an agent. I work for the town, and I place the coverage with them. Okay, so I'm an employee at Hatchon Curley. Now that agency is aligned with the Renaissance Group because they were a small agency for a long time, so they had to go out and get a bigger agency to join up with them. He has to pay them a commission on anything that he does for, their technology, their computers, and because they're a small agency. When they acquired us, they become a larger agency. So what he has with Renaissance and the deal he has with Renaissance, I don't know, and I don't care. It makes no difference to me. I don't know what else to say. Money is not, I don't need $1 in my pocket. I get plenty of money. And I've never once thought about commission income when it comes to any of my accounts, especially this one. Like Bill will tell you, I was born and raised here. I care about the town. I'm not in it for the money. I don't need it.
Yeah, John,
but I'm just saying.
No, but I don't think we're not. I'm not criticizing you personally and saying like, oh, how much, like, are
Yeah,
you
not at
getting 12%? I'm actually saying like, what are we paying for? What's our cost of insurance acquisition? And I guess maybe that's like, it's not untoward. It's saying to you like, oh, nobody's accusing you of, taking anything here. But I think the other thing is like, I'm still trying to work my way through. It's fine. This is a sort of the way you described it there. This is sort of, you're doing this for the town, you're representing the town. Is anybody paying you on this? Are we paying you or are they paying you?
Well,
I don't care. I just want to know where the money comes from.
Right. Well, I mean, last year I earned just what I could earn under Social Security, but I get paid as an employee to handle many accounts. I handle I have maybe, since I semi-retired, I probably handle 13 or 14 accounts, and this being one of them.
Okay.
So I get paid a salary. Now, what he gets from the carrier, my guess is it's between 5% and 8%. That's my guess.
Yeah.
What he has to give to Renaissance, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a deal that he has with them, just so that he has other carriers. So he has to take something off the top and give it to them. I don't know what the arrangement is, and it's really none of my business. But my guess is that the carrier is going to pay us between 5% and 8% by the time we're all done. Pay it to him, not to me.
No, yeah, and that's fine. That's sort of the ballpark. If it was 20, then we'd like be like, oh, is that the right amount?
If it was 20, then I'd be doing it on my own.
Yeah, John, John, when we met in the subcommittee, I did my best to make it very clear how impressive you were. It's not about you. I think me, and I'm confident speaking for Doug on this too, I'm at least trying to just understand how the money flows, and there's money somewhere, and it's not about somebody being a bandit or something, or somebody lurking in the shadows, chopping off a big percentage in commission. Is just a function of understanding, how the money flows and where the costs are. That's all.
Correct.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Stefan, did you have a question?
Yes, I think at the very beginning there was a comment, and I'm not sure if it was related to cyber liability and data compromise specifically, but you had mentioned that there was one policy that was reduced, and I wasn't sure if it was specifically related to that, or if you had more details on what policy was reduced or not needed.
Well, I just have to step back here. Probably about 30 years ago, I had a loss at the Merrick Civic Center on boiler and machinery. And just to get the boiler out of there cost us a tremendous amount of money. And by the time I was done with the deductible and depreciation, we really didn't make any money off of. So the longest time, we didn't have boiler machinery. They call it equipment breakdown now. So a couple of years ago, they rolled it into the property premium, and it was cheap. And when I found out what it was last year, I said, no, I didn't want it. So equipment breakdown basically is, you have a air conditioning system or a heating system that basically just quits on you, that we will replace it. But we have a $100,000 deductible. And when I talked to Steve, we decided that it was probably best to drop that. We picked up enough money to buy the cyber liability and data compromise. When you look at what we have now, instead of a boiler being 5 feet in the ground, now we put them on top of roofs. They're small. You have basically a truck crane to take them up and down. We have service agreements, maintenance agreements, and for the most part, all the boilers and heating and air conditioning, they're all new. So it was worth taking that off with a high deductible, I thought, because we didn't have it for a long time, and kind of realign the program more for the cyber liability and data compromise, which, I mean, we didn't know at the time that we're going to have a pandemic, but and a lot of teachers offline, if you will, but so it worked out well. So we gave up something I thought we could afford to lose to pick up something I thought we really needed to have.
Okay, and one last question too. You had mentioned that we get our services from Trident.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if we go through every few years a recompete of other carriers, some sort of process where we're competing Trident against some other I guess municipal public.
Well, in the municipal arena, as you can imagine, with all the coverages we have and the building limits we have, it's a really small arena out there that, so you're not going to see like a Chubb or Travelers come after something like this. You might see them in small school districts, but they're not going to, the underwriting can never get their arms around what we do here. So the only other program that I have out there, that's out there that I know of, and it's a direct writer, which goes back to, Doug's point, is the Mass Municipal Program. So there, you don't deal with me. You would deal directly with the underwriter who handles this district, right? Whether it's in Stoneham. If it, in Massachusetts and in most, well, let's say Massachusetts, if it isn't with Trident, it's going to be with Mass Municipal. Unless it's a small school district where you have one building and, underwriting get their arms around that. But you would never see, carriers that we're familiar with come onto a town. It's just too much. They couldn't handle it. So you have a specialized programs, and those are the only two that I know of. It's either, this one, or which goes through independent agents or brokers, or the Mass Municipal Program, which is direct. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's all I know.
Yes, thank you. I'm just curious, do we know, I guess, comparison wise for cost, what the Mass Municipal Program would be?
I have no idea.
I think it would be about the same, although we haven't done a direct comparison, but I'm not so sure their service has been that good over the years with other communities. And half the time it's a citizen, right? They hit a pothole, they did things like that. It's my colleagues on all, some like Maya. I never had much personally like them that much. We used to have our health insurance through them, and we went to the GIC and that was much better. So I'm not so sure, Maya's not, but they are basically the few out there.
Thank you.
I see hands up still, or Doug, you all set? Evan, you're all set, I think, right? Yep, okay. Anybody else? All right, that covered general insurance. Which one would you like next?
Go to workers' comp. Workers' comp budget, we are recommending that this budget be decreased $65,079 over the current fiscal year. This decrease breaks down. The tax levy portion decrease is $56,883. The water division decrease is $2,656. The sewer division has decreased $1,734. And the municipal light department has decreased $3,806. The total budget request for fiscal 2022 is $472,540. with $420,990 coming from the tax levy, $11,124 coming from the water enterprise, $6,202 coming from the sewer enterprise, and $34,224 coming from the municipal light and gas department. Before I turn it over to John to tell us the good news for next year, I do want to mention to the committee that we will be looking for a reserve fund transfer in this department to close out fiscal 21. We're in the vicinity of approximately $35,000.
Okay. John, we got a PDF on this as well. You want to go over some of that for us?
So, obviously our 19 to 20 year was exceptional for us. And if you go, when you think of workers' compensation, it's either an on-premises exposure or it's an off-premises exposure. So in December of 19, we had a snowstorm and we didn't have another one. I always tell the story that I was walking the lake in February in shorts and they were mowing the grass beside the Congo church. So we had an exceptional year. So when you decrease on-premises exposure and you by the weather alone, it's either a slip and fall or it's a strain and sprain for the most part in municipality insurance. So by reducing that or eliminating it, we had an exceptional year with only about $80,000 of paid losses. We also had some of our higher class rated classes out there working, like the light department, was doing that project on Salem and New Salem. Cemetery was out, highway department was out, park and forestry was out. So we really had a good year from a management standpoint. And then at the end of the year, just about this time last year, when we met in March, we shut everything down. We eliminated all the on-premises exposure by having everyone at home. So we did get some relief, if you will, in this budget from the pandemic. This time last year, when I met the finance committee, which is the first week in March, then we had $44,000 in losses. And right now, as of last week, we had 46. So the trend of good experience is continuing. Because of that year, where we only, the 19 to 20 year, we only had $80,000 in paid losses. Our experience mod in our ARAP charge, there's two components to it. Your experience modification measures losses $5,000 or less, which is for frequency, and up to 5,000, in addition to 5,000, it measures a loss that affects our AREP charge, and that measures severity. So because that year was just off the charts for us, it reduced our total component from 121 down to a 104. So our experience mod now is 102, and our AREP charge is 102. So if we took the $46,000 we have in paid losses now, and even if we doubled them twice and get to 180, our expected losses are around $236,000. So even if we did that for the next 4 months, we're still going to be below. And my guess is that we'll go on the credit side for the first time in about 30 years. So, I mean, obviously we could have one bad loss and that throws everything off, but I don't expect it. I don't expect to have that. Our losses, you know, I was telling Steve and Kevin a couple of weeks ago, is that, you know, 30 years ago, I could book 50 to 56 losses guaranteed. And then I went to 40, then I went to 30, and now we're in the 20s, and last year we were in the teens, and we are this year. I have my theories on that as to why we have such a reduction. You know, I'll go over the 4 of them quickly that I think. One is I think people are healthier. You know, I think they care more about their bodies and being healthy. So when they come to work, if they do fall, you know, they can get up, if you will, and go. So I think that's a big thing. Technology plays a big part here, right? I mean, we can now keep people home when it snows or icy. We can do the remote learning. We have snow equipment that's quicker, it's more efficient. Bucket trucks are more technology driven, if you will. They're safer. So I think we live in a world where technology has helped us a lot. I think the stock market's helped a lot. I think people enjoy seeing their retirement fund go up, and they're more willing to work and not really take off if they're hurt. And then the last thing, and I guessed at it, but I guess I think that the average age of our employees is lower than it was 30 years ago. And so those bodies are less compromised. So when they are working, they're not getting hurt. So I think a lot of that is, you know, has contributed to us having less losses. So I do think the trend is going to continue. And I also can say it's nice to have good experience. I'd take good experience over a rate decrease any day. So if we can stay in around that one, you know, or even a credit, I think it's great for us. So.
Very good, John. Thank you. And a few questions, Gerard.
Thanks, Jim. Hey, John, just curious, I think you snuck in a reference to remote learning. I'm curious if there are any dynamics on the school side. We should keep in mind they were working, right? There was a teacher effort, albeit decentralized and at home. You know, I started my career off in insurance, and claim verification can be a challenge when the more disparate people are, right? So, or the more diffuse their location. So with that in mind, Superintendent Lyons did make reference to something like this in one of our meetings. So I'm just curious, is it, though those macro trends seem perfectly normal, anything crazy coming from the schools, or were they so substantially decreased as well as you would expect or anything else we need to know about?
Well, I mean, the school makes up probably 75% of the workers' comp budget, right? I mean, what all the, you have 700 employees going in and out of those schools, you know, cafeteria workers, custodians, and teachers, part-time teachers and everything. So we always seem to have our quite a few slip and falls. We didn't have any last year. You know, it's an interesting point because I thought about this for a while. I don't think the industry's kind of caught up with the remote teachers yet, because obviously they can get hurt at home and would have to pay them, right? It would be a workers' comp loss if they fell downstairs or something like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, when the landscape changes and we know what it looks like, the rates will catch up with that. Right now, the teacher rate is 64 cents per $100 of payroll, right? They change rates every 18 to 24 months. They had a rate decrease last July. So my guess is it's going to be next year that they'll have another rate decrease. By then, they'll get the, you know, cumulative effect, if you will, of losses that are happening in the home that are related to work. And I think that'll be reflected in the rate. I think you're probably going to see a decrease, but I don't think they've really got their arms around this at this point, what that's going to look like. But it's funny you say that, because I'm saying I haven't had anybody say, well, I fell down my stairs to go to my computer. And it's only a matter of time before that does happen, but there is coverage there for them. I mean, you have to pay them if they're working during that time period. Yeah. So
It's an interesting challenge for the industry.
it's definitely gonna be a challenge. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
A good one for you to investigate, Gerard. That happens.
I still think like the forensic accountant, claims verification guy, you know, it's all about litigation. So no. Can't shake those old reflexes.
Yeah.
Very good. Dan, you have a question?
Yeah, it's actually more of a comment. I listened to John. I think you're absolutely right on your 4 reasons. And I want to give you a 5th reason. I sit on the retirement board, and I want to say about 18 years ago, Massachusetts passed a law called early intervention, where if somebody became injured, there's a number of steps that retirement board and employers had to do if somebody got injured. And it really created a big focus for employers to look at how people did their work. Are they doing it safely? We've got fewer disabilities now that come before the retirement board, because I think people have figured out, instead of them lifting something with their back, maybe they should use the backhoe and a chain to lift something up. I mean, I see it in DPW, fire employees. So I think there's a lot of in the last many years, people are working smarter and rather than harder. And I think that's also, I want to say, the 5th reason that you might see a reduction in those claims.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. There was a time, 20, 30 years ago where people wanted to get on workers' compensation. They don't want to work. They just said, oh, I'll go on comp, and they'd stay out and they would malinger. And the industry was very slow in getting to these employees and challenging them. Now they can. Just to give an example, in construction, when I worked if you had a backhoe that was, digging a trench and you had hot top there and you put it on, you'd have to actually pick up the pieces and you put them inside the bucket to put it inside the truck. Now, of course, now they have a little thumb that's on the backhoe and they pick it up themselves, so you don't need the man standing there. So it's working smarter and it's working with safety. And, it still goes back to, the supervisors, I think, are doing a good job in the town of making sure that, we're not doing anything stupid. 62% of all losses nationally happen because of overexertion. Now that doesn't mean just picking up something that's too heavy for you. It might be just that, you instead of going back to the truck twice, and you might want to try to get everything in your arms one time and then you trip. You might be going a little too fast in icy conditions walking. So that overexertion, 62% of the time leads to a workers' comp claim. And to me, that's management. That's talking to your employees and say, this is the way we're going to do it, and watching over them. So and 88% of all losses happen because of an unsafe act of an employee or a combination of employees. So they're all most of them are preventable. But I do think that we have smarter workers, healthier workers, and people who want to work and have that dream of retiring early, if you will, when they see 10, 15, 20% returns on their retirement account.
Good. Thanks, Dan. Anybody else? All right, John, are you doing Medicare or not?
Not my game, Jim.
John, thank you on behalf of the rest of the staff, the folks. You know, we ask questions to ask questions, and we appreciate your time joining us.
Mr. Chairman, I think Evan has his hand up.
I think he's just still stretching. All right. Thank you, John. Always appreciate the discussion, the insight. Like you say, keep it around 1 point something and plus or minus 1.03 would be great shape.
Jim, I'm greedy. I want a credit next year. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you, John.
I'll see you
John,
later.
thank you.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Great
All
service
right, thanks,
every
John.
year, John. Thank you so
Hey,
much.
Joanne, how are you?
Thank you.
See you, John.
Thank you.
See you, Billy.
What would you like next, Kevin?
We'll go to the animal control budget. We're recommending that this budget be decreased $44,811 over the current fiscal year. This increase breaks down. There's a decrease in personal services, $75,886. This is due to a retirement that we will not be replacing a person into that position. We have an increase in contractual services of $34,550. We are looking to contract out the animal control duties. We have a decrease of $3,475 in materials and supplies. Main expenses within this budget under contractual services is the professional services line item, which is going to be used to farm out the animal control duties. Total budget request for fiscal 2022 is $40,600.
And if I can jump in, so our longtime our longtime animal inspector, Ken Stach, has retired. So the way that I'm handling that department is the way I've handled it for vacations, weekends, injuries, if Kenny is out, is that we do have a certified animal control officer through the state that does cover the town on weekends and does during the week. Now we'll go out at $50 a call. And I will tell you right now, great time. There aren't a lot of calls at this period of time. So what I am determined to do, and I've spoken with a couple of my neighbors, is to combine with them in having animal control as a intermunicipal agreement between one or two, probably two communities. And there's a community, one of our neighbors, that their longtime animal control officer has left. So we were able to, come to hopefully some agreement and have that as an intermunicipal agreement between the two communities. Right now, the animal control emails and calls actually are going to the police chief, who has taken this on for me to handle this because he has nothing else to do. And the calls are going to their call center, but he's getting the emails. So he can assign that out, or his offices can take care of some of the minor things so you don't have to pay. I think this will work out very well. And a lot of the communities around us, I won't say most, this is their model. They don't have a full-time position in there. So if you talk to Danvers, Middleton, Reading, that's their model. So I'm very pleased with the savings in this account, and I think we'll get the same service. So I'm open for any questions there on that budget.
Great. I don't see any. We like the trend.
Yeah, I know you guys would.
Okay, next budget. Thank you.
Next budget is the parking clerk's budget. We're recommending that this budget be increased $3,575 over the current fiscal year. Kenny Stake, who was the former animal control officer, will now be handling the responsibilities for this department. He'll be working 6 hours a week, 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, $25 an hour. Therefore, that's the increase that's in personal services is $7,800. There is a decrease under contractual services of $4,225. The cost of the handheld devices and also the professional services that was in the parking clerk's budget is now being paid for out of the police budget. We have collected revenue through this department between $70,000 and $80,000 a year. We get parking violations, and then we get tickets that are collected by the Registry of Motor Vehicles. The total budget request fiscal 2022 is $12,950.
So the parking clerk position is not a parking control officer, and there's some confusion sometimes. So this person is not going out issuing tickets. This person is handling the back end, the processing of the tickets when they come in. So there's a couple things that happen there. They also hear appeals. So we do have an online appeal process, like a lot of cities do. You can send an email and appeal your ticket. They handle that. They also help processing. This is probably the biggest part of the job. And I know that because I end up handling it when Kenny wasn't there, is people go to register their car or to renew their license. And lo and behold, they have a ticket from 2 years ago that they never paid when they overstayed at lunch at Public Kitchen one day for 4 hours. And they just said, I live in Newton. I'm not going to pay that Wakefield ticket. They'll never find me. And then they go to the registry and try to renew their license or register a car. And they find out that $25 ticket has turned into about maybe a $200 ticket. We make some nice revenue there. But more importantly, they're stuck. They can't do anything. And it does take a couple days to go through the systems. You haven't lived until they come flying in to appeal that ticket. It's kind of a lot of fun for me. So we do need someone to manage that process every 3 days a week, 2 hours a week. Kenny is great at it. He knows the system and everything. And I think you might recall years ago, way back in the finance committee days, there was a person that did this job completely. And I think that was like $15,000, $16,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, or in that area. So between the two budgets, we end up saving about $40-some odd thousand. So I think it's not a bad deal for the town. Actually, $42,000 we save between the two. So works for me.
Okay, any questions on the parking clerk? Yes, Dennis.
Any reason why he went into personal services, not as retired, instead of having it as contractual services?
Well, this is a personal service job in that budget. I thought that was the appropriate place to put it. It is like a second job. It's where I put others. Kevin, I think that's where it should be appropriately.
Yes, I feel comfortable in personal services.
Well, I just got the other add-ons. That's why I was worried.
What other add-ons?
For insurances and stuff like that, if he was contractual service, we wouldn't see work.
Yeah, well, in this case, the person is already getting insurance and what have you as a retiree, so doesn't matter.
Okay.
And it doesn't have enough hours anyway of the week that it would even kick into that.
Okay. Dennis, you good? Anybody else? All right.
Last
That's
budget.
parking. Yep.
Last budget is the Medicare budget, requesting an increase of $39,650 over the current fiscal year. This budget is used to pay the town's portion of the Medicare tax. This is a salary-based tax on employees hired after 1986. This tax rate is 1.45%. I'm estimating a $2.7 million increase to the Medicare eligible salaries for fiscal 22. I did this. I was projecting an increase of 3.5% without the schools. I got an estimation on what the school salaries will be going up this next fiscal year. When I factored that into this budget, it brought me a little over 4.9% increase. So I rounded that up to 5%. That's what this budget is up. And the total budget request for fiscal 2022 is $832,650.
Questions? Okay.
Well, I'd ask, so what was the number that the schools gave you for salary year on year?
What they told me, the current fiscal year, they had a payroll of approximately $36 million. And using round numbers, they told me $38 million next fiscal year.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, Dan, you put your hand up?
Yeah, I was interested by that $38 million in personal services. And I note in our forecast, we're using right now 4.9%, which comes in at $37.925 million. So, and that's consistent with what we understand the new CBAs will generate. So I think the 38 million that Kevin's using is spot on for the schools.
All right, any other comments on Medicare? Kevin, thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
Steve, you have any other items?
The only thing that I would point out is that we did talk a little bit about, very kind of a roundabout way, about cybersecurity today and right in the insurance part. But in the middle of March, there will be a little bit of a working group that will advise me on this matter. So it's not an open meeting law issue, with members of the IT subcommittee and town council. So and Todd at IT. So we will come back, and maybe at some future meeting, we might have an executive session to talk about that, where it is an important issue and it has come up. So I just wanted to get back to the committee on that. The other thing is that all of the budgets and miscellaneous items that have come in front of the town council, in front of the town council and in front of the finance committee at this point have come in at an increase of 2.58% over last year. Kevin's done a great job with them, with the department heads, and the department heads have done a good job of heeding our requests to come in at reasonable levels. So I think that they've done a good job, and I thank the finance committee for meeting. You have a few more meetings to go, but I thank you for meeting with us on all these items. Thank you.
So committee comments, I'll open it up. Any comments?
Hey, Jim, I'll bring the committee up to date on school comm if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Dan, it sounds like you already have your finger on the pulse. That 4.88 is what the administration had brought to the school committee. I think it was Tuesday night's meeting. And again, I attended their finance and facilities subcommittee meeting this morning, where they kind of reaffirmed that. So prior to this interaction, the subcommittee met with the administration, and they presented their three scenarios: one at about a 4.3% increase, scenario two at a 7.52-ish number, and 4.88. So I think your model has incorporated that which they're going to pursue as they go through now their more typical framework. I think that's probably not a surprise to many people. A couple of things. I took the liberty of listening for the group. If you want to hear Christine and Doug's briefing of the school comm last week, it's 1 hour and 50 minutes flat into their Tuesday meeting. A worthy review. It's basically what they told us last week. So that was a pretty good overview. I have the slides and all that kind of stuff that I screen captured from the WCAT. But really, as we heard, they have some CBA driven ads from last year that they're hoping to recapture, postpone this year's contractual ads to next year. So it all comes down on the net new heads, really deferring out the plan from the CBA out by about 1 year. They go into some of the COVID mitigation uncertainties and things like that. Nothing really new than what I told you guys last time we met as a full committee. But the message has kind of been more tailored, and they've focused in on that 4.88. Some key dates to keep in mind. So Christina committed to getting the school committee members their package somewhere on the March 3rd, 4 timeframe, and they'll discuss it, deliberating on their March 9th meeting. I think the committee, the community forum was on the 18th, and I think they're going to vote at the 23rd. So Jim, I asked Doug today if he'd been in touch with you about when he might be coming here. I didn't want to muddy up whatever direct conversations we're having and agenda management generally, but I kind of deferred to you on that. Other than that, that was the big thing. We talked a little bit about the MSBA package and things like that, but I'll perhaps defer to Joe on things of that sort. So that's all I have now. What's to be done, I think, is have the school committee have their meeting, look at the budget numbers, and then we'd meet again. When we met as a subcommittee by ourselves, not even with the administration, we thought, one before, one further down the road would probably get us to the right level of detail. And some of the details they're discussing on the operational side are coming out in public meetings, which I'm watching and feeding to you guys. So that's all I have for now, Jim. Happy to take questions, however you want to manage it.
Very good. Yeah, I'm hoping to get them here for the next meeting. I think we have a meeting 3/11. They're meeting with schools on 3/9, and then hopefully 3/11, they could give us a preview, and then they'll be back to see us again later. So,
yep.
And again, Gerard had gotten the 3 scenarios. We had some good dialogue about that in the subcommittee. And so I think at the next meeting, I'll just firm that up. That's what we were hoping for. I just didn't get a confirmation before tonight's meeting. Apologize on that, but that's lining up. I wanted them to come sooner, and Doug just asked that he needed to at least present preliminary numbers to the school committee before he came to us, and I agreed to that. So it should be in next meeting. So we'll get some discussion with them.
Yeah, well, the town council expects their school department presentation on the 22nd of March. So your time frame makes perfect sense. They come in the 11th, kind of a preview, and then come on the 25th of March to present their budget. And then hopefully maybe we could have voting from Finance Committee on beginning of April for the May town meeting. So.
Jim, if I could just squeeze in a thanks. I did send out individualized emails to all of you. Thanks to those of you who responded. Some very thoughtful questions, some of which normally came up. Yes, the sped budget, they are going to go to the stabilization fund this year for sure. Not expend the whole thing, I think but that is a surety now. Dan, I know you asked about that, and Doug got right into it as soon as we met. I think everyone else's questions were pretty well covered by the normal cadence. Dave, the one question you asked about the cost of the logo deliberations and renovations or whatnot, we haven't gotten to that yet, but that's a big debate, as you might imagine right now. So no estimates of cost on that one.
Have we gotten cost estimates for repainting the field house?
No. Okay. There was a want to name the field house Doug Butler Field House, but I shot that down straight away.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks, Gerard. On the SPED, do we know if they're going to put in an article to replenish whatever they decide to spend this year? I'm assuming you say is they're going to ask to tap for SPED for 2021. And then I'm wondering, are we going to try to replenish that in 22? And do you have any idea how much?
I don't know how. Do you know how much, Gerard?
No. I'm sorry, how much coming in, or how much would they be proposing to put back?
How much are they proposing to remove, to take out?
Yeah, take out.
I have 500 in the back of my head. Let me check old notes to see if that's about right.
500 is what's in there.
540 is what's in there now.
540.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the number I had in mind.
Yeah, so what happened was, what we were chatting about it, they were talking about that they thought it was, lower than X, and then we kind of reminded them that we thought we had replenished it. And I don't see, I have some notes I'm looking at real quick here. I don't see a number either,
Yeah.
Except in the dialogue that, sped costs and sped demands as a result of the year away, if you would, it's believed to be increasing or being something that's going to need to be very much managed in a different fashion. So they were happy to hear that we had the, that it was back to basically a full number, and he wasn't. I didn't see a number that I have, unless you had it, Gerard.
I think they were going right up to the limit, but I remember asking the question, what's the threat of going over? And he said, no, we wouldn't fully expend it, but I took that to mean almost exhaust the stabilization fund without going over. And that's probably where I'm coming up with the 5 out of the 540.
Yeah,
So,
and keep it in mind in the
so Steve-
dialogue. Sorry, go ahead.
As I say, so Steve, when do the articles close? Do we have a date yet for closing of articles?
I believe articles close March 12th, I believe.
Okay, so this may be something, a replenishment may have to happen in November regardless.
I think it's kind of silly to pull from sped in the same town meeting, then replenish it again.
Right.
Right, exactly. So that'll be a November effort. Okay, thank you.
The other thing at the schools, there's some potential for, additional federal money to come, but there was nothing baked in their mindset. That they weren't making any assumptions for getting any additional CARES money or et cetera. What happens. They're working with the knowns. So.
Exactly. In addition to that, there was some local largesse of pretty big numbers that we're not counting on that either. So it's really sticking to that. They also, we had a joint discussion about the revenue loss on both the meal side, which is a big point of discussion this morning. Some of the mandates on the environmental sustainability rules, trying to phase out the styrofoam. The packaging of paper goods is really at a national shortage level. So that's causing like a 35 cent increase. I think it's more 30. But a lot of, like I said to you last time, there's a lot of operational nuances. There always are, but this year it's coming from all angles. So again, some of the deliberations you'll hear at the school committee, should you invest some time in listening to it, really provide some operational detail, especially on surrendered revenue, and call it, your less thought of operational costs.
And Gerard, what was that meeting? And it was an hour and 20 minutes in. Was it just the most current meeting? Is that what you said?
This morning. Yeah. So this morning I got pages worth of notes from the food service director, facilities, in back and forth. And I offered my own 2 cents. I said, this is exactly the kind of operational back and forth we like to hear about. So they were talking about trade-offs, financial and operational. It was a pretty robust discussion. Jim, you seem a bit frozen. I don't know if you're trying to get in there. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Gerard. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're definitely frozen.
You had mentioned there was a school committee where they had the dialogue about the scenarios.
You're breaking up, Jim.
I think I caught Jim's
Can you hear me
point. The way I understand it, and Steve, if you know any better, please let me know, but I understand they're coalescing around scenario 3, which is a 4.88 increase as we go through the public hearing process, the details of which I can circulate to the group, or it's at the WCAT recording at 1 hour and 50 minutes flat. It's a worthy listen. I think it'll give you guys, one of the points we often make to each other and to them when they come is like, hey, who's looking at the operational drivers of cost here? And you'll see that the school committee members are kind of getting into that. Elements of the administration are going through cost benefit analyses. I'll give Susie Vey a bit of a shout out. She's like, I'm a very committed environmentalist, but I'm hesitant about putting a 30-cent increase on families at a time like this. So it kind of shows they're thinking about competing priorities in a very difficult time. So that was kind of my big takeaway from today and watching the meetings that are on WCAT.
Yeah, I think
Very
that what Gerard is right, that they're looking at 3 different scenarios, one of which is COVID is completely gone and they're back into the kind of a full-time classroom mode. The other one is that they're continuing where they are now, and that's the 7.5% increase or so, because that would take, you know, a lot of things were covered by grants in this year. So without the grants coming in, you might be looking at, you know, maintaining those 16 remote positions and what have you.
Right.
So that was I think the 7.5 number that gave me agita.
Yeah.
And I spoke. And the other one is, I call it a hybrid, because it's kind of there's still somewhat of a remote component to it, but not as much. It does reinstate some of the contractual positions that they spoke about hiring before. So, and that's in the 4.88 range. So that's right spot on from what I heard as well.
Yeah, if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I can circulate to the group some of the slides that really condense Steve's points right there. It's spot on, so.
I'd love them to.
Can you hear me again? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Gerard, yes, that would be appreciated. Send that, if you could send that to the team, I'd appreciate it.
I'm sorry, Drew, the meeting that, you know, at 1 hour and 7 minutes in or whatever you said,
50,
what was the date of that meeting?
It was Tuesday, the 23rd.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other committee comments, folks? All right. We meet again in 2 weeks, I believe.
Will the chair entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll
I'd
second.
be delighted. All right, second by Dan. All those in favor?
All right.
All right.
All those opposed?
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.